My name's Simon Manchipp and I'm one of the co-founders here at SomeOne. And SomeOne has been amazingly in existence for 10 years, a decade. They said it was never going to work, but it has worked. 10 years, nearly 50 people now, and working on brands all over the world, big and small. Predominantly on launching and relaunching brands. That seems to be our core thing, but that seems to involve everything from advertising to packaging to branding, traditional branding. The thing that we really love to do is try to over-deliver. And I've kind of never been in a client situation where I've presented some work and given people too much and they go, oh, please don't give me any more. People are always quite grateful. And because it's creative work, I think generally it's best proven by application. So a lot of agencies kind of present, I've been in the meetings, a lot of agencies kind of present the big whiteboard with a tiny little black and white logo in the middle as if this sacred thing, and I just don't think you ever see that in reality. That's not actually how brands behave. So we like to really over-deliver and show how brand work behaves in all sorts of different channels, whether that's a mobile experience, whether it's a stadium, or whether it's on packaging or a fascia. So that's kind of the mantra is kind of to over-deliver. And to do that, what we try and do is we try and do the very best work we can. We try and get paid fairly for that work so that we can have fun while we're doing it. And if we kind of do those three things, that always seems to point towards a kind of ability to kind of chase the opportunity, not the money, And if you chase the opportunity, generally good work comes out of it. So we don't really have written down kind of core values as such. Like I think they're useful for some brands, but for us it's much more a behaviour set, and that is to really be able to over-deliver and just to be helpful, be actually helpful. A lot of branding isn't. A lot of branding gets in the way, or it's just surface mounted and it doesn't actually run through the business. So by over-delivering, we try and do that. When I started out in this game, like in the 1800s, there was a lot of talk about brand positioning, right? Brand positioning was the thing everyone was talking about. But the thing about that is that brand positioning means that it has been positioned somewhere and therefore it's entirely false, right? It's a lie. And that used to work, I think, when you had broadcast branding and there wasn't social media involved, because people used to revere brands, right? But I think we've gone from that kind of revering to kind of a more referential aspect now, where we reference our peers. And so you can't really do that positioning thing anymore because it just looks false. So, for example, I thought that Uber's strategy for everyone's private driver was terrific. That is a positioning, but it also felt like truth, because it is. You felt like you had your own chauffeur, even though you're you're a plasterer, but you've got your own chauffeur for the weekend, right? So a really good way of expressing it. But now they've moved to something that feels much more marketing. And so we think that actually you don't want to actually have a positioning. That's a really bad idea. What you want is a position. You want to have an opinion on something, because opinions are ultimately what we talk about. Well, that's what I'm talking about now. And it's what maybe provoked you to ask me the question in the first place, is to have an opinion is to be interesting, hopefully. And then to be interesting is to stimulate conversation. To stimulate conversation is to populate culture. And by doing that, you stimulate fans and hopefully, get some customers. Fans very quickly turn into customers. So that's why we say opinion, because otherwise I think you start off in the wrong way. Like our relationships with our clients are really friendly. Like I've just come from a meeting and we've been laughing for most of it. And it's a very big, serious, grown-up company, but it's very, very casual, friendly, trusting relationship, because we've got an opinion, they've got an opinion, they marry up, and so we're on a shared journey together. And it's much easier, I think, to gain people's trust if you remove that nonsense and that marketing spiel that everyone knows is false and no one really likes. Strategy has a kind of bit of a bad reputation, but what we try and use it to do is to create a rudder that drives the work. So that actually, if you've got 5 people in a room, it doesn't really matter what those 5 opinions are. It matters what the brand's steer is, what the brand is trying to achieve. And that's what we find very useful for strategy. Rather than kind of endlessly talking about values and names and all that sort of stuff that does tail off into wankerdom pretty quickly, where you just think, oh no, what have I done? Who have I hired here? What we try and do is keep it very practical. So you can kind of say, look, so you want to sell this business in 5 years for £20 million. How are you going to get there? Well, you need to do this. Fine. So that means that's the trajectory we need to work on. And so the brand work that we do needs to help support that journey. And that's what strategy is really for. It's not those awful brand guidelines that, you see endlessly about, we've chosen red because we are progressive and rah, rah, rah. That's nonsense. Our best work comes from when we have a shared agenda with a client, right? And I think our best work also comes from the design teams here having a shared agenda with the strategic outset of a business proposition, but also with the way that the project's managed, and also, frankly, the way that the company, SomeOne's managed. A shared agenda, I think, is a real marketing advantage, but it's also a really good way of getting stuff done quick. And we are really fast here. You have to be really quick, I think, these days to get stuff done. So I think to have that manifesto is interesting because it means that we had to write it down, right? Whereas a lot of design practices, you look at their website and it's a beauty parade. And so as a client, how do I make a decision? Okay, well, I like the work you've done for that agency or that client or that building or whatever it is, but how do I know if there was a common thread that ran through all of this work? And so we have that kind of manifesto about brand worlds and how that we think that, brands these days, if you have a logo and a typeface and a colour, well done, you're in the game. But that's not enough for multi-channel coherence, or whatever you want to call it. And so what we think you need is a whole palette of choice, a shop of choice. And so that manifesto of saying, when we work with you, we're going to give you lots of good stuff. It's not going to be one little thing, and it's going to be like an over-delivery that's going to enable all these channels to have something to play with from day one that's useful. And so that's our kind of manifesto, if you like. I think it's incredibly difficult. Honestly, I'd tip my hat to anyone running a design company. It's really hard. It is really, really hard. It feels like there are more reasons for it to fail than there are for it to succeed. And that goes at every level, from business rates right through to winning pitches. And I think that those businesses that can identify a niche and chase that niche, well done. It's really good. But I think my approach here is that the generalist seems to win. Harvard Business Review actually wrote a very good article about this latest edition, where they talk about if you're a generalist and you go in for an interview, and if you're a specialist and you go in for an interview, the generalist generally gets a higher salary and gets more job offers for the work that the specialists are actually applying for as well. Because I think clients like a more worldly view. So we have no specialist sector. We've worked in them all and continue to work in them all. And there's been temptations where you think, we're doing lots of charity, we could become charity, or we're doing lots of, telecoms, let's do telecoms. But we've always resisted becoming specialists and rather say that we only specialise in launch and relaunch projects, really. But even that doesn't work, because then we end up getting kind of a maintenance job where we're trying to maintain a project. So really, it's just anything to do with communication is what we kind of do. But then there are people that specialise just in music or in arts or charity or whatever it is. But I've always wondered, and this might be speaking out of turn, but I've always wondered whether people genuinely choose that or if they find themselves pigeonholed. That's possibly the thing, that people say, well, we specialise in working in the arts sector. And it's because they did one arts project really, really well, they attracted loads more, and they keep on attracting more. It's like they say, if you do crap, you get more crap. If you do great stuff, you get more great stuff. And I think the best advice that I was given was that advice by Fred Deacon over at Airside, saying if you do crap, you get more crap. And so avoid doing crap. That's really good advice. Do the best work you can.